Ready?
Whenever you are.
Call the meeting to order.
I have to find my. I'm going to review the minutes from last month. Any corrections?
I move they be accepted.
Okay. So I hear a motion. Second. Okay. Meeting's passed.
All those in favor?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
6:30, we have a, oh, I'm sorry, there were two sets of minutes. There was December 3rd and December 10th.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Oh,
I
okay.
amend the motion for both sets of minutes to be approved.
Okay. Second? All in favor?
Aye.
All right.
We have Laura Kelly from Protect Our Cape Cod Aquifer here. She would like to give you some information, updated information on the glyphosate regulation or policy that the Board of Health had voted about a year ago to move forward with. She has some information from other towns who have moved forward and would like to answer any questions that you guys may have.
Thank you. May I give you quick handouts, my approach? This is the policy that Dennis just wrote last week. That would be the 7th. And this is a quick brochure on glyphosate itself.
Yeah.
Be helpful. Yeah, she would have that, but I thought it would be something we could use. Oh, and here's article from the Cape Cod Times for kids. So, to get a little closer here. Hello, I'm Laura Kelly from POCA, Protect Our Cape Cod Aquifer. Requesting the Board of Health write a policy or regulation volunteering not to use glyphosate products on any town-owned land again, and to write about it. So asking your departments, like Megan said, last year we were here and we requested the departments not use glyphosate, and as far as I know, they're not. And the board did move forward to say that they would write a regulation, and we got busy. The summer came and the fall came, and who knows, we're here today to ask the same thing of now this board. Moving forward, there's a lot more science that has come up since then that I believe you have in your packets. Proving harm to pollinators. Now there's a direct connection to the microbiota in bees. Glyphosate's harmful to developing children versus adults simply because they are smaller. So getting this off of like school grounds, golf courses, parks, walkways, it is extremely meaningful to residents as well as visitors. The request is to volunteer not to use glyphosate products because it is illegal to ban the sale or use of any pesticide in the state of Massachusetts due to the preemption law. The preemption law in the state of Massachusetts says no town can ban any pesticide. That's an insecticide, an herbicide, a fungicide, anything. But the town owns the land. So like if I have land, I can maintain it any way I choose. It's the same reasoning. The town owns this land, you maintain it, your departments do, or it's outsourced. So you can decide how to, what tools you choose. And I request you just take one tool out of your toolbox, and you can put in, I've given you alternatives, 19 of them. None of them are of a product. So there's things like organic herbicides available. I think that's an oxymoron, personally. And so I'm not suggesting to use other products, but maintained with mechanical or by hands or by animals. So it's site specific. Do you have a poison ivy problem on soccer fields? Do you have Phragmites in a marsh? You know, so glyphosate was so powerful that it can handle all these situations, kills anything and beyond. Unfortunately, that's why I'm here. So, you know, being site specific for the vegetation, that's why I have 19 different alternatives for you, and that's a whole nother discussion. There are other, I wanted to say really briefly, there are other companies available locally that can educate if there's some departments that are interested in help. So I've given you a template that I wrote with a doctor that's about 6 pages long, and I know it's seemingly big, but the difference between a regulation and a policy, I'm sure you folks know, is a lot. And the one kick, I think, in this fun thing that I'm learning is that a regulation will hold up in court. And as you know, there's 43,700 court cases against glyphosate right now. People are harmed, and they are asking Monsanto for money. And technically, it's over 1 million, I just heard last week. But these people are getting sick and passing away, and so they're not even making it to their time in court. So that's why those numbers change so much. So the difference between a regulation is if somebody was harmed on your town-owned land, if you wrote a regulation, it would hold up in court. If you write a policy, it will not. So you have the science and harm. This blew my mind doing this research. I'm a happy gardener. I don't know much about all this stuff. But once I really started reading, it was completely obvious that it's mobile in soil and water. What? You know, that doesn't say that on the label. So what's fascinating is 1974 is when it came out. And when you look at that versus what's coming out around the world for studies, it's like, it's so controversial. It's amazing. So I think in a time when it is so controversial, we need to err on the side of caution and know that there are cost-effective ways. There are many alternatives. We can protect. And other towns are doing this now. We have 10 towns, and actually there's 11. Chatham should be moved up on that list. It's on the bottom. Barnstable is doing more, et cetera, et cetera. So I was in Plymouth last night, and they're seeking to do a policy. I just want to give you a quick visual. You, I'm sure, are very familiar with the depth to our drinkable water here on Cape Cod. It's somewhere between 0 feet in Provincetown and 88 feet in Sandwich. So Harwich, let's just call that in the middle. You're going to have your sand dunes that are thicker and taller, and you're going to have your patches of clay, but this is really, impermeable sandy soil, a situation that hasn't shown up in any studies on Cape Cod yet. And I asked why. Silent Spring, we don't have anybody testing this. Cape Cod Commission, APCC, Center of Coastal Studies, all our labs on the Cape, nobody's testing for glyphosate. The state, it's not. So why isn't it showing up our water? And my answer is because we're not even looking for it in our water. You're familiar with PFOAs and PFOSs, the PFOS? Oh, I'll just wait for a second.
Sorry,
That's okay.
thought I turned it off.
There's got to be one in the room, so you're just the one. You're familiar with PFOAs and PFASs. Now, those are contaminants of emerging concern, and glyphosate is also a contaminant of emerging concern. So, just give you a quick visual. This is parts per trillion on both of these. And this one really blows my mind. One drop contaminates 20 pools, Olympic size, not just normal size. And that's going from generation to generation. So it's really fascinating to me to do the research and realize, like, stuff like this makes it so I really want to stand up and just start talking about it, you know. Golf courses, it's a really big deal. Dennis decided to, their golf courses asked for time to learn more about the alternative. So they're on the policy, but it's up for them on July 1st, 2021. And I just wanted to clarify that because there's lots of studies about golf course superintendents being, becoming sick. There's proper ways to actually remove glyphosate in containers, whether there's product in it or not. It doesn't have to be empty. So there's many reasons to, I'm going to use the word ban, to volunteer not to use it from towns. And so it's my greatest ask to continue to follow the towns. We're working off Cape now, and really the state is not willing to to ban it statewide. But the towns can volunteer not to use it, and that is legal. And so we're going to work and hit up 351 towns with this packet in hopes that in 2020, this really makes a change for our children and our next generation. So I hope everybody here tonight is willing to create a policy for this like Dennis did. And does anybody have any questions?
I
Ron?
have some comments that I picked up recently. Not that I'm against the policy, but there is another side.
I know. It's true.
And I'll just read these few comments for anybody's interest. The EPA says its research shows the chemical poses no risks to public health and won't approve warning labels for glyphosate products. Number two, the EPA considers labels warning glyphosate to cause cancer to constitute a false and misleading statement, which is prohibited by federal law. In 3 out of 4 human studies of American, Canadian, and Swedish agricultural workers, the IARC found a link between glyphosate and non-Hodgkin's lymphoma, a cancer of the immune system. A fourth multi-year study of 80,000 American farmers showed no relation. That's one caveat. The other one is, if you don't use glyphosate, what are you going to do? Now, you've written a lot of great ideas. I've tried maybe a third of them, and they don't work, particularly with poison ivy. The other 2/3 are great, but I doubt that your local home gardener is going to get out there with a weed whacker. I really do. And what's more, if they spread the poison ivy juice around, they're going to cause more trouble than they could cure. Lastly, one of the alternatives, which is available everywhere on everybody's favorite agriculture store, is a product called Spectracide, which is also known as Diquat. And I looked up Diquat, dibromide, and here's what it says. Moderately toxic, may be fatal to humans if swallowed, which is not true of glyphosate, by the way, inhaled or absorbed through the skin in large quantities. So why are we prohibiting a possibly dangerous substance and not inhibiting a definitely dangerous substance? End of speech.
Granted, there are many products out there that are worse than glyphosate. Glyphosate is the one thing that I choose to work with and educate about because it is changing. I do see that the EPA continues to back up their words. The World Health Organization is the greatest worldwide scientific research that we all have got to rely on. It's just the greatest opportunity. And they said 3 springs ago, March 2017, that this is a probable carcinogen. So I get that there's two sides of the story because, yeah, even our state says it's legal and you can go and purchase it any day, happy day. But we do need to realize that other science is proving extreme harm. How come there's 43,700 people saying I've got cancer from it? You know, it's stuff like that that I know the EPA isn't recognizing, but we need to. You know, I just think that we have the ability to do the right thing and not wait for these things. The science is out. We can read it. And there is always going to be two sides to a story. And definitely there are much worse products out there. This is just one thing that I think is current. So I wish to talk about it and make change. Thank you. Do you have a question? Yeah?
Well, my thinking is if there's all these suits already, why would you want to subject the town to another suit? Tie up money, tie up attorneys and things like this. If something's controversial like this, you know, let's find alternatives. Makes much more sense to me.
Your thoughts?
Well, we've been working towards a nutrient management, a fertilizer education policy regulation. The last few months it's been on work sessions. So I think if we were moving away from a fertilizer regulation and going towards education, but if we do some sort of policy, we should incorporate this in it as well. So I think we still need to move forward like we had talked about a year ago. And it is next on our agenda, so.
Matt, did you have any other thoughts or? I don't know. Sorry. Okay. I just wanted to make sure. Great. Well, I appreciate all your efforts. I really hope that you folks do move forward to write a policy. I know a regulation is different because you hold a hearing and, you know, it's more paperwork and it takes longer and then you've got to enforce it and regulate it. But a policy, I'm completely willing to accept. It keeps the products off town-owned land. It's the point. You know, that's what Dennis just did, and Chatham, et cetera. Some towns are willing to go forward and do more. But regardless, it's the spring, and most people purchase in the spring. And, you know, you're the town leader. So if it were, you know, in the papers that you decided not to use a product, it's going to educate homeowners and local businesses, too. It's going to lessen the amount. So I really hope that you guys can move forward and maybe take the draft from Dennis and create something similar to that sooner than later, because we skipped a year already. Do you think is it a time to vote and move it forward at all, or how's this work?
Well, the golf course.
The golf course superintendent is coming to our
Yeah.
February meeting to talk about fertilizer, and we can pick his brain as well about glyphosate alternatives. So I think as far as writing a policy or looking at a policy, I think it would be beneficial to hear from him next
I
month.
think that's what we're waiting for.
Okay, wonderful. And you can always, just so you know, two things can happen. They can ask for a variance, as you know, or you can exempt the golf course from the policy, or you can ask them if they need a year like Dennis did. You know, so there's a couple different things you can do to kind of ease it in, because it is, you know, changed. It's hard to change overnight. I got all of that. But once it is changed, it's changed and it's done. So would you folks be writing a policy to bring up at that meeting? Or, you know, you're going to wait till February and then it would be brought up in the March meeting? Something like that. Okay. So I guess I'll see you then. Thank you very much for your
Yes.
time. I appreciate it.
Yes.
Hi, thank you. My name's Clara McClarty. We are Harwich residents, my family and I, and we support POCA and their initiative. And we have a 1-acre property. We grow a lot of things there and keep bees. We have bittersweet, poison ivy, oriental bittersweet, the non-native one, and all kinds of stuff that we don't want. And we're finding many viable alternatives, mostly mechanical. And I just want to urge you guys as the Board of Health that I believe our society in general is focused on cosmetics sometimes at the expense of real authentic health. And so to be concerned about, you know, the weeds and the cracks in my driveway or the golf course, to me, if this is possibly a health concern, that has to be more important than cosmetics. And on Cape Cod, I think, especially because of our tourist industry and all that, we understand that, you know, the charm and that stuff is important. But it also with the fertilizers, I would be so excited if we could stop the fertilizing of lawns at the expense of, you know, the estuaries. And also even the sewering project is possibly an enormous expense that's coming down really hard on the working class people, you know, while the big foo-foo houses have the perfect lawn. And so just to keep on thinking of, you know, authentic health over cosmetic concerns. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, I would agree with her that for bittersweet, mechanical means are excellent. They work. Poison ivy, not so much.
Poison ivy is a native plant here and useful to wildlife. It gives us a rash, but it doesn't give us cancer.
Any other comments from the audience? Okay. We are going to discuss town golf course fertilization next week. And we are in the process of making a policy on fertilization on town properties. So we will certainly take it in consideration to ban this product from town properties. That's a start. Okay, thank you.
Will you accept emails in the meantime from other residents on either topic between now and?
Oh, of course. Mhm.
Okay. The next on the agenda?
The fertile.
Fertilizer or nutrients?
So the next thing on the work session is the continue of the review of the draft Town of Harwich nutrient pesticide control bylaw slash education. The last two meetings we had, you all discussed the difference between a regulation and education and agreed that education for fertilizer would be more beneficial because a regulation is very difficult to enforce on private property for fertilizer. Exactly. So during that session, we talked about getting some flyers or information or something from other towns or agencies to see if there's something in them that you were interested in kind of adapting and adopting. So in your packet, there are three things. One's from the Cape Cod Cooperative Extension. It's a trifold education brochure on fertilizer and when to use it, when not to use it, how to do a pH test and what that means. There's a fact sheet that doesn't have as many pretty pictures, but it tells quite a bit about, there are regulations in place at the state level, pretty much talking about what we were talking about, that there are already restrictions on when you can apply nutrients and when you can't. So any sort of regulations that we did locally would be mimicking the state. I don't know if you feel like that's worth it or not, if they're already in place. And then the last one is from the town of Chatham. Chatham did adopt a fertilizer regulation, and part of their regulation is needing an applicator to be certified. So someone who applies pesticides professionally would have to be a certified applicator, and that's a course and certification given through Cape Cod Cooperative Extension, follows best management practices through MDR. So that's another kind of flyer thing that you guys had wanted me to look into. I did include in your packet the regulation that I had drafted that we sort of didn't want to do. We were going to go through it. I don't know if we have time tonight or if you want to wait until perhaps you have a full board. But it talks about why we want to do it environmentally as well as to fulfill our needs with a comprehensive wastewater management plan.
I think we should have a full board for
Okay.
that.
But I did want to,
Also have the, with the Fernandez as well.
yes, Sean is coming
Maybe
next month.
after he talks to us, have some questions for him, and then
Yeah, he and I kind of drafted these together, and I think he'll be able to answer your questions about enforceability, because he's a turf management person. He knows how to make grass grow properly without excessive fertilizer. But I did want to point out in the draft ones that we did on page 5, it does have management of unwanted vegetation on town land. So there's just 2 paragraphs that kind of encompass what we were talking about with Laura, and it doesn't specifically talk about Roundup. It uses glyphosate as an example. But it states the use of synthetic herbicides, which would include glyphosate. It's broader than just glyphosate. So those 2 sentences I did talk to Sean about, and he thought that was reasonable for the golf course, which is encouraging to know that he's willing to move forward with an organic land management practice rather than using some of the more harsh chemicals. And
I do like the idea of anyone who uses the fertilizer needs to have the certification.
okay.
I don't know how other people feel, but
Yeah, that point kind of went back and forth the last, I'd say, 3 meetings we've had, because who's checking that?
I know.
And, who's checking that? I think, and we had talked about the professional landscapers are the ones that usually aren't the worst offenders. It's the homeowners. The professional landscapers don't want to overuse their product and lose money. So they're going to use it as the label, as the label requires, rather than a homeowner that says my lawn isn't green enough, I'm gonna go out and get a second bag of fertilizer. So, you guys wanna talk more about how you wanna handle that?
I still like education as the method of choice. Over the past several decades, I've been listening to naturalists on the Cape who all talk about Cape Cod lawns.
Mm-hmm.
And a Cape Cod lawn means about 1/3 crabgrass, 1/3 clover, and 1/3 switchgrass. And that's typical of most lawns on the Cape. And then you come to one that's beautifully manicured and not a sign of any invader in the lawn. And a lot of those places are not residences. They're summer homes. And I can think of probably half a dozen where the owners come down 2-3 weeks a year, and they pay a horticulturalist to keep the place looking great in between.
Mm-hmm.
And that's price we pay in nitrogen loading for people trying to make their houses of palaces instead of just plain old Cape Cod houses. And if we could get that word out, I think sometimes ridicule can be a very effective means of education.
Well, I would suggest that we hear Sean next month and set up a work session for February. So we'll send out some possible dates in February after our meeting and be able to actually do something.
Sure.
We usually don't have time at our regular meetings. Okay?
Okay.
Okay.
Comments from the audience at all?
I'm sorry?
Are you accepting comments from the audience on this topic at all?
If you have a comment,
Yeah.
brief.
I promise.
I think I was quick earlier too, actually. There's a lot to talk about. Thanks. I think I sent Megan this to you as a chart of the other towns on the Cape that actually have a fertilizer regulation set through the Cape Cod Commission and the EEA.
They've received that.
I believe. Yeah. Okay. Good. Okay. Good. So, it's hard to, describe if you don't know the abbreviations for anything. So, if anybody has any questions about the amounts allowed use at the time of year, the application rates, things like that. So it's just like another language, basically. But it's great to know what other towns are doing and create your own, or work within what the towns are doing. So it's not so extreme for the landscapers that go from Harwich to Brewster to Orleans and have different, codes and recipes that they have to work within. It'd be great if they were all, county-wide. That would make things a lot easier. So I just wanted to explain that really quickly. Hopefully that's in your packets. It is imperative to, I don't want to say regulate, but lessen the amount of nitrogen and phosphorus. I won't go too crazy on that. And then the difference between a regulation and a policy.
I think we went over that before.
Yeah, right. So I don't know, again, an educational forum is here, a policy is here, and a regulation is here. So, maybe you start out with a policy and allow the landscapers to know that they need to change their recipes and, send out information to the residents, getting them to see that you're going to work to a regulation saying that you need to be a Massachusetts State's licensed
But I think
applicator.
that's something that we need to discuss. among
Yeah,
ourselves.
so, okay, wonderful. I just want to give options. Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
All right, the next item on our agenda is a continued food service permit application discussion for the Seal Pub and Cafe at 703 Main Street.
Hello. I've met a few of you. I'm Mike Scott from the Seal Pub and Cafe.
So last month, Mr. Scott and Mr. Young came before you to talk about a new food service application. They're taking over the space currently occupied by Reds, which is right here in Harwich Center. They are changing from a disposable service to glassware china, which in turn reduces their seats down to 21. At the time, he did not have a floor plan showing the seating. He's provided that. In your packets, you'll see the setup is a flexible seasonal seating plan. So he's proposing to have 13 inside seats at all times, and then having the other 6, does that come out right? 13,
Yeah.
15, okay. And then there's 2 in the center here. And then having 6 seats that are flexible seasonally. So in the warmer months, the outdoor seats would be available. When the warmer months are over, those seats would be moved inside for the winter seating in that space that is off of the cafe. So
Small room.
it is a small room. I do recommend approval with a pre-opening inspection done by our staff. Other than that, I think they're good to go.
I move approval of the health.
Do you have a question?
When do you intend opening?
We are held up by the liquor license. Didn't get out of Joe's office in a timely manner. So, in fact, what was the day, Jen, that I came to see you? Friday. Last Friday, I made it out of the office on Friday. So hopefully, we should open, if they can rush it, February 1st to the 15th. But we're still waiting on the state. So we've got our side done. So we're good on the health side. All the permits for this and all the class work and all that's done. So we're just basically, we'll go in there and we will, if you know the area, there's two areas. There's what I'm going to refer to from now on as the cafe side and the bar side. I'm thinking them as separate businesses, even though they're not. It's just the cafe will be open at 6 a.m. So we'll be doing that 7 days a week. Coffee, espresso, cappuccino, good coffee, pastries, cookies, things of that nature. Grab and go, I'll call it. You can sit down. I'll have a nice farmer's table in the little tiny room during the winter months, so it'll be warm and cozy. Summer months, outdoor seating. The bar will be closed off at that time. So hopefully, if we can get the state to approve it pretty fast, and I think our attorney knows the inspectors, so she feels it's going to go pretty good.
Okay. I move approval of the health director's recommendation.
Do we need a second? Second, okay. Second? All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passed.
Okay.
Well, good luck.
Call me when
Thank
you're ready
you
for
very
your
much.
inspection.
Appreciate your time.
Okay, new business, Fully Baked Smoke Shop has come to me requesting to change his existing tobacco sales permit to an adult-only retail store. So if you want to come up and, yep. As you know, back in September, you all approved a new regulation that limits the number of adult-only retail stores in town selling tobacco products. Mr. Foley has stated that he's always been an adult-only store. His store has always had a 21 and over sign in the window. During the regulation change, he wasn't aware that he needed to make that fact known to us. And in doing so, we had 3 permits that we allowed in our regulations. The reason why he couldn't automatically just take one of those permits is we had 3 applications. We had the one in East Harwich that is still pending opening. We have the one in Harwich Center, which is currently open, and then the third, which was proposed to be next to the Domino's in West Harwich. That license did not move forward, so we then had 3, which allows Mr. Foley to have that license if no one objects.
The one in the Harwich Center is now a computer store, is that correct?
It used to be,
Yeah.
yes. So we just need a vote to approve or discuss this license.
Well, as long as it's not increasing to 3, I so move.
You might want to hear from the public too. They may be.
I was just going to ask, any comments from the public? Okay, do you want to do a second? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. motion
Thanks.
passed.
Thank you.
Thank you.
The next hearing we have is from Montero at 11 Braddock Street to consider a variance request to upgrade a Title V septic system prepared by Ryder and Wilcox. The variances, one variance is requested to allow a proposed soil absorption reserve area to be 87 feet from the edge of a coastal dune where 100 feet is required. Variance request of 13 feet. I open the hearing.
Good evening, I'm Stephanie Sequin, I'm an engineer with Ryder and Wilcox, and I'm representing the Monteros, who are the owners of the property at 11 Braddock Street. It is just off the end of Main Street on Nantucket Sound. It's a total lot area is just about an acre. A lot of that is coastal dune. There is an existing house. It was built in 1984, so it has a Title V system that was designed under the 78 code and consists of a 1,000-gallon septic tank, distribution box, and flow diffusers that have an approved capacity for 4 bedrooms. The existing system was inspected in October of 2018 and was found to be in good condition, no signs of failure. And it was a real estate inspection which allowed the property to be transferred to the Monteros, who bought this in January of 2019. They have come up with plans for a new 4-bedroom dwelling. They would like to tear down the existing building and construct a new 4-bedroom home and upgrade the existing system with a new system designed in accordance with the 1995 code. So we're showing a 1,500-gallon septic tank that will be a monopore tank because it's more than 50 feet, but less than 50 feet from the coastal bank. A distribution box and a leaching field with capacity for 4 bedrooms. We did encounter groundwater. The leaching field is designed to be at least 5 feet above the estimated high groundwater elevation, so we're getting a benefit from the existing system, which designed under the 78 code was only required to be 4 feet above the groundwater, so we're increasing that vertical separation. Everything, the proposed leaching field complies with all setbacks from the proposed building, from the 100-foot buffer to the dune. There is a water main that comes through this property, and so we've maintained the 10-foot setback from the water main, from the property lines. Everything about the new system complies with Title V and Board of Health regulations, with the exception that the reserve area that we're showing, we just can't fit that outside of the 100-foot buffer to the dune. So we are requesting a variance to allow that reserve area to be 87 feet from the dune, where your Board of Health regulations require 100 feet. So we're asking for a 13-foot variance. In all likelihood, if this system fails in the future and has to be replaced, it would just be put back in the same location and not even utilize the reserve area. But because we're changing the footprint, we have to show that reserve area. This has been approved by the Conservation Commission. I haven't seen the order of conditions yet, but they have approved it. So I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Okay. Megan, opinions?
This new system they're proposing is an improvement over the existing system because it's farther away from the coastal dune. If the dwelling hadn't been proposed to be raised and replaced, the system that's installed right now would still be sufficient. Even if they did propose to raise and replace this new structure is farther away from the resource and still maintains that 20 feet. So I don't think there's any issues with approving, and I recommend approval with the condition that the property be restricted to a maximum of 4 bedrooms, that any further increase in habitable space or square footage be reviewed by the Board of Health, and that the variances and conditions to be recorded at the Barnstable Registry of Deeds.
Okay. Close the hearing. Comments from the board? Any,
Speak up and move the approval of the.
hold on one second. Any comments from the audience? Okay, go ahead.
I move the recommendations of the health director be accepted.
Second? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
All right, thank you very much.
The only thing I wondered about, I'm not making it an issue, this is 10 feet from the water main to the sewer? Is that
That's,
sensible?
yes, that's the minimum required distance. Okay. Thanks, Stephanie. The next hearing we have is for Moyna, 14 Grassy Pond Road, to consider a variance request to upgrade a Title V septic system prepared by Moran Engineering Associates, LLC. 3 variances requested to allow a proposed soil absorption system to be 5 feet from the south property line where 10 is required, to allow the soil absorption system to be 5 feet from the east property line where 10 feet is required, and to allow the proposed soil absorption system to be 15 feet from the cellar wall where 20 is required.
We open the hearing.
Good evening, Dan Croto from Moran Engineering. This is an existing house. There's existing floor layout shown. It's a two-bedroom house that has an existing cesspool. The owner is looking to upgrade to a Title V septic system. No changes to the house. Standard case in Harwich Board of these old subdivisions, and then new environmental or health regulations put on top of old subdivisions, and the new regulations don't fit on quite a few times, as we see in Howardsport and other parts of town. So the mechanism is the local upgrade. The variances to the DP allows the variances setbacks, knowing that sometimes it doesn't fit the new regulations on these old lots. When we surveyed, and there was an isolated wetland out back. Unfortunately, it made it a little more challenging, in that we were originally going to put it in the back corner, but I think we got it in the best place possible for this little lot. There is going to, Peter, the owner, check with a plumber. He can redirect the pipe to get the septic tank out front, leaching area on the side, and so we need the 5-foot variances to the lot line and 5-foot variance to his own house, and gets it away from the wetland and gets a nice new septic system in. It's designed, the existing house is 2-bedroom, and the design has got to be for 2-bedroom, so there'll be a, I believe there'll be a deed restriction at the 2-bedroom because a 3-bedroom septic won't fit on the property. So with that, I will ask for questions.
Okay. Comments from the director?
This is an improvement over the cesspools currently serving the house. They aren't proposing to do any additions or alterations to the home. I recommend approval of the plan with the conditions that the property be restricted to 2 bedrooms, no increase in square footage or habitable space without further review by the Board of Health, and that the variances and conditions be recorded at the Registry of Deeds.
Comments from the audience? Okay. Do I hear a motion?
Guess I'll move again. Getting all the attention. I move the acceptance of the health director's recommendations.
Second? All in favor?
All right.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Dan. The last hearing we have on your agenda tonight is a Phase 2 sewer waiver request from Mr. Kukunis at 86 Bay Road. The owner requests a hearing before the Board of Health to allow the use of an existing non-conforming septic system until such time as the municipal sewer is available for connection. The property is located in Phase 2 of the Contract 2 area, which is currently being constructed.
Good evening. For the record, my name is Leo Kukunis. I am the trustee of Osprey Village Realty Trust, who is the actual legal owner of 86 Bay Road. I'm in front of you this evening really for some guidance and for some help. As all of you on this board probably know me, I'm the local farmer guy and I'm a common sense guy, and it just irks me to no end that I'm about to throw $1,200 out the window. So I thought there might be some avenue that we could come to some kind of consensus. Let me give you some brief background. I bought the home back on August 4th of 2005. It is a 4-bedroom home. I had the septic system inspected at that time. It passed then. There were no questions. We're thinking about selling the property, so my wife and I are going through the procedures of what we need to do, and obviously I know we need to have a septic inspection done, so we have now had a septic inspection done. Septic inspection, I believe, is in your packet and before you, because that's what triggered the letter from your board to me, or from your office to me. I am aware of the fact that it is a large tank that is located in the center of the driveway, and as you head down towards the road, Bay Road, there is a D-box. And then the D-box, the pipe comes out of it, makes a sharp, depending on what you're standing, 90-degree turn to the center of the grassy area in the front of the house where there is a leaching pit. I just want to draw your attention to a couple of facts. First off, the D-box is not an H20 D-box. It's an H10 D-box. And we all know that if you're going to drive over a D-box, it should be an H20. That's what the regulations require. So that's the purpose of the failure, if you will, of the inspection. A couple of things I want to point out. One is the D-box has been in its location since the house was built, and that was back in the 70s, and it did not fail, it has not cracked, it has not collapsed. If you look at the house itself, you will notice that there is a wall on the right-hand side of the driveway and a tree on the left-hand side of the driveway. So it's near impossible for a vehicle to have a car tire drive over the center of the driveway where the D-box is located. Possibly one reason why it was never crushed. The second thing, and more importantly, is that I am on a schedule to be hooked up to the new sewer pipe. And I have gotten estimates from a local company here, I won't say their name, but a well-renowned company, to replace the D-box, which was required by the inspection, and I got estimates of $1,200. Now, I'm not going to sit here and cry poverty. I'm not going to sit here and say I don't have the $1,200. I'm not going to sit here and say that, you know, I need help to not do this. But it irks me to no end that I'm going to spend $1,200 for a concrete box that measures 1 foot by 1 foot that's going to be removed in a year from now when the house is hooked up to the city storage. So I'm here tonight to ask, and I'm not sure really what the correct term is going to be, a variance, a waiver. I know that there's a responsibility, equitable responsibility, which is a document that anyone purchasing the house is going to be looking for. And I am very willing to put $1,500 into some kind of a account that is held by either the town or my attorney or the Board of Health, so that even if I sell the property, you still have the money there to, if in fact, a year from now or 2 years from now, for some ungodly reason, Harwich doesn't vote to finish the project, the house does not come connected to the sewers, then the money will then be available in some kind of an escrow account. But quite frankly, I'm just really bothered by the fact that I'm going to have to spend $1,200 and have it within a few months, maybe 12, 13, who knows? I don't know the dates of when they're planning on doing this. But seriously, it's going to just be ripped out. So with that, I through the guidance of your office, I put in this formal request in writing because, again, I'm here for guidance and help. And I think you're probably going to see a few more of these come through the town and come across your board, because I think as East Harwich starts to move forward with the sewerage problem, or hookups, I shouldn't say problem, but sewerage project, there will be many houses like myself that fall into a category that, hey, they should be repaired, but is it really necessary? I do want to draw your attention again, the D-box is not leaking. I don't know, 19, 25 feet from groundwater. I'm not in any kind of a groundwater recovery area or no environmental reason that I'm asking a waiver for. It's really essentially my common sense cheap farmer thinking coming through, I guess. That just looking for some guidance and some help. So if there's any other questions, or if there's anything that I can, documents I can give you guys, again, I have copies of not only the inspection report that I just did, but the one that I had done when I originally purchased the house. And I guess I'm just looking for some way that I can not spend this money and never get it back.
Megan, can you enlarge on my comment? The sides of the box are breached? Does that mean cracked or what?
So I talked to Joe Martins, who's the inspector who did the Title V inspection here, because his report did say that they were breached, but when I talked to him, he said a distribution box is a foot by a foot of thin concrete if it's H10, and the sides of them have knockouts that are made of plastic, made to connect distribution lines, and there's only one distribution line coming out of this, so there are two knockouts that are there that are showing signs of wear. It's not leaking, but should you park a front end loader on it, it may bust. But we are talking about a year and a half to. Again,
I'm not adverse, but I'm not adverse to opening that up and taking care of that with relatively putting some backup, if you will, on those knockouts, because he did point that out, and I did see that, but it's at this time it is not leaking.
Joe Martins did suggest, if we don't want to go forward with the full repair, which I agree is money wasted, shoring it up with some extra concrete would be beneficial, especially if it's going to be sold. We wouldn't want to see a new buyer have a problem. We do have a process. We talked about this almost a year ago about waivers for situations just like this, and we have a waiver form. It's very basic between you and a seller, you and a buyer, saying that upon real estate transfer, you will have this recorded at the Registry of Deeds saying you're aware of the failure, you need to upgrade, but we've allowed you to continue with it, and you agree to connect to the sewer within 45 days of availability, rather than the year or two that other homeowners get.
I was kind of hoping my real estate agent was going to be here, but he advised me to ask for some kind of a document that the mortgage companies are going to be looking for the new buyer in the event they have to get a mortgage to buy the house, and he said it was a document of financial responsibility.
Yes,
I think. I wrote it down and I forgot the little card at home. I'm sorry.
The waiver form has a letter that needs to be attached that says who's financially responsible for connection to the sewer within 45 days. And that's just a document that somebody's lawyer draws up and gets recorded. I did come across this problem. The board approved a waiver a few months ago, and the bank didn't accept the waiver form. They wanted a passing Title V letter. So what we can do, if that comes up as the case, is write pass with advisory. So that should suffice for the bank if your seller needs that. So I would recommend we approve the waiver. We'll get you the paperwork that needs to be notarized and recorded.
As long as you guys guide me through this with the sale, and again, I have not put it on the market yet, because I just want to make sure that everything is done and everybody's happy, so that when we do get a buyer, and it can move forward relatively quickly. Unless you guys want to buy it. Any of you guys want to buy a house? He raised his hand. You're in. Sold.
Okay, so I hear a
Was that in the
motion.
form of a motion?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
I second it.
all in favor of the advice from Megan? Okay. You're all set.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it very much, and hopefully everything will go through.
Yeah,
through
I'll be
great.
in- I'll be
Yeah,
in
thank you,
touch.
Megan. I'll be in touch with you when
Sounds
as we
good.
move forward with the sale.
Thank you.
My first one to go, so after this one, there'll be a few more if you guys got any relatives that want to move to the Cape. Thanks again.
Have a good night.
Oh, yes. I'm not sure. I might want to ask.
We'll get far tonight.
It's chilly.
Is there something we can help you with? You've been sitting here.
Yes, we had supposed to come and ask for extension for scope connection.
It's next month.
I talked to her and we discussed about one today.
No.
Not January 21st?
No,
That's
it's
what I got the last time when we asked for until
February.
April.
It's February 18th is the next Board of Health meeting.
Oh, you've been sitting here.
That's what the letter said.
Because that's why I note on that same day in my,
Well, that's when this meeting is, but unless you request something in writing to be on this meeting, it was extended to the February meeting.
so it's extended to up to the February.
It was continued. Read your letter. I don't have your letter in front of me, so I don't want to misquote it.
Okay. Because when we discussed, it was 21st of February, so January, I gotta show up for the extension. If I need until April, first April, and then we discussed on the phone that if I want the extension, I gotta come here. If I don't want it, then I don't need to show up. That's what we thought. And I was surprised when I did read this one, and I was waiting for it.
We have those minutes, don't we? In our packet.
No, because it was the November meeting.
Oh, it was the November meeting.
Yeah, but they should be posted online, so they're not correct.
She's going to look at the minutes.
You know, it's just,
No, I had thought we had said, giving you the extension to April was too
supposed
too
to get,
long.
April 1st, but the last meeting that November we had, and we discussed about that, and you guys decided to give us only to January in the next year, like first meeting, so they did it now. And I
So,
voted on that time.
the motion from the November 12th meeting, Ms. Bleeger moved to approve the request to extend the deadline of the approved tobacco application from 21 Plus Smoke Shop, 1421 Orleans Road, until February 15th, 2020, and that the Board of Health will reconsider it at their February 15th, 2020 Board of Health meeting. Second by Dr. Cushing and approved 400.
So if you can't be open and running by the 15th, you need to let us know so you can get on the meeting for that
Yeah,
meeting.
the problem is the company is so big, it's taking so long for that response from them. So we are working for the leads and everything,
Mhm.
but it takes so long, but everything's lined up. So I don't know, like, I gotta still come back for the proof, or you guys can provide me.
It needs to be on the Board of Health agenda
Okay,
for them to discuss it. So you'll have to wait for the February meeting
February.
for them to discuss it. Okay?
Sorry.
It's okay.
Yeah, it needs to be a public agenda item.
Yeah, I was like surprised. We were keep discussing, and like when I called, like remember I called you
I don't recall that conversation, unfortunately.
because last time I called you for the people still selling the products.
Yep. That one I remember, but I don't recall discussing
And,
meeting dates with you.
On the time that I said the 21st, the meeting that should I have to come, and like that's why I thought maybe misunderstood that I had come on to the first, so that I thought of that same day, I saved that day, 21st, so that's why I knew.
You're not on tonight. Sorry.
Sorry.
So 15th, should I show up?
There's not a meeting on the 15th. Why don't you call me tomorrow so we can talk? The meeting is on the 18th,
Okay.
but your deadline to open was the 15th. So if you're not going to make that, you need to request the hearing on the 18th. Okay?
Yeah, but, yeah, okay. Let me call you tomorrow and they straighten it out.
Yep.
All right, thank you guys.
Have a good
Sorry.
night.
Sorry.
It's okay. It's not your fault, maybe it's just I misunderstood.
Okay. A couple items left on your agenda is my report. Lots of tobacco things happened. We had the new state law come into effect that restricts the sale of all flavored products throughout the state, not just here in Harwich. A difference between their regulation and ours is the regular convenience stores are able to sell the flavored, well, not in Harwich, but in other towns, they're able to sell the flavored tobacco products in the convenience stores until June 1st. Not vaping products, but just combustible cigarettes.
Isn't there an exemption for menthol,
Until June 1st, and then and then that's included. We're running into a problem with the fining schedule. So, the state fines are much more strict than the town fines, which is nice to see. However, I can't write a ticket for $1,000. It has to go to court for a criminal complaint. So I met with Detective Harris today about how to go about doing that. Anything $300 and under, I can just write a non-criminal citation, and it goes directly to the violator, and they pay it down at the town clerk's. But over that, I can't write a ticket. It has to be a fine that goes through the court system. So it's a little more cumbersome, but I think we're going to end up having to do it.
It doesn't have a COLA amendment. I mean,
No. No.
Is it all 21 now?
It's all 21 throughout the entire state. Yes. Yeah. Yep.
And the flavors end in,
So in Harwich, flavors can continue in the adult-only stores until June 1st. Yep, and then they're illegal except in smoking bars, which is something we have to discuss.
smoking bar here.
No,
We don't have any present.
right, we don't have any smoking
This
bars.
one- I'm sorry, this one here just opened up.
Yep,
Yes.
it's just a
And where's the other one?
fully baked smoke shop, which is next to the Lighthouse Cafe and the post office on Route 28 in West Harwich.
I thought that was just where you bought
Paraphernalia?
it.
It was until the new tobacco laws changed and it prohibited the higher dose nicotine vape products. You can only sell those in adult-only stores.
So that becomes an adult store now?
Yes, that's what we voted on tonight, yeah. Yes, yes. And you can't smoke on the premises of either of those stores. So eventually we need to look at our regulations again, even though we spent the entire year last year doing them, to update our fines to match the state fines, and talk about smoking bars, giving some regulation on that, because right now we don't have
Did
any.
anybody apply for it?
No, but we've had interest in someone opening one because they would be the only place you'd be able to have flavored products. So there may be a draw for that, unfortunately. Let's see, emergency planning. We did meet our deliverables this quarter with our flu clinic and the call down drill. I've been offered a training down in Alabama, which is pretty exciting. It's through the Center for Domestic Preparedness.
I thought you'd already been. I was gonna
No,
ask
it's
you
in
about-
March.
Oh, it's in
Yes,
March.
I'm very excited about it.
What kind of weather do they have there?
Warmer, yeah.
Anything's warmer.
Not necessarily,
No.
it depends.
It's about 2-hour drive from Atlanta. So
wow,
it's
okay.
still, it's not quite it's not the most south part of Alabama. It's a 3-day
Who's
training.
sponsoring that?
The HMCC, which is the Health and Medical Coalition, it's a federal training grounds, and every year I think they hold 9 trainings for local agencies, and this is one of them that they're incorporating, Region 5, which is the Northeast. So we're Region 5 HMCC, and they needed a local public health person. They're bringing the hospital people and healthcare people for training on an emergency, a public health emergency. So they needed someone in a leadership capacity from public health. So they asked if I would go, and it's completely paid for by the federal government, so it doesn't come out of our budget at all, which is nice. It's 3 days down there on the base.
Peter Pan bus or
Flight.
executive
I get to
jet?
fly. No executive anything, but I do get to fly there.
Oh, good.
Other news, we had someone from the State Bureau of Environmental Health come to our Health Agent Coalition meeting, and I sent you all the link for the public health tracking tool. It's really interesting to be able to get on there and look at things like how many cases of lead poisoning our town has had, and other things like cancer incidents and the prevalence of other diseases in our town. So it's nice to see. We can maybe look at it and show some need for some public health wellness programs to maybe combat cardiovascular disease or things like that that's prevalent in town.
Do you communicate with the school nurse?
Yes, I do.
How, in that capacity, I know some kids are out of school and things like that.
She
do you
calls me.
address that at all?
She calls me when there seems to be some kind of outbreak. Last spring, she had called me because of a lot of kids being out with a GI disease, wanting to make sure I was aware of it and she wanted to make sure she was doing what she needed to do as far as not letting kids come back for a certain number of days after illness symptoms had gone away, and what to use for sterilizing or disinfecting. Aside from that, we talk a little bit about smoking problems, or we have, the 2 schools, 3 actually, but I've talked to the elementary school nurse and the high school nurse about what they do about vaping and things like that.
What's the result been?
This year, since the vaping's been banned, not as available, she hasn't seen it as rampant as it was last year, which is a good thing. But this year they said if you're caught vaping at school, it used to be a detention, and now it's a mandatory 6-week class, like a cessation class.
Oh my gosh, that
Yeah.
would kill kids.
Yeah, so once a week for 6 weeks, I believe it's an hour on the dangers of smoking and how to get help and how to deal with the
No
after.
exemption for athletes?
No. So yes, we talk, and if there's something you were interested
Is there
in.
someone who, let's say, speaks to the children or the high school about the dangers of vaping, or how is that being passed? In other words, how is what we're saying over here being told, let's say, in a high school or a middle school or something like that? How is that being addressed?
Our school social worker, so the town employs a social worker, Sheila House.
Again, in other words, is it brought up, let's say, in a auditorium or a classroom, or how is that working?
Well, I'm not sure if it's brought up in the classroom, but I know that the parents have been invited to like a seminar on how to recognize the signs and what to do if they think their children are vaping or smoking. I know there's a group from Barnstable County that has gone to schools, and I can find out if they've come to Monomoy Regional District too. It's like a peer advocate group, so they're younger kids.
Yeah, well, that's the point I'm trying to make, is there's somebody, in other words, not just that you get caught vaping. I mean, I think there should be education about what it's doing, what it does to you. Let's say compared to cigarettes, or in other words, so the kids have an idea that at least the schools are addressing the subject in a health way,
Yeah.
not just
Well,
a punitive way.
Our granddaughter went to Monomoy Middle School last year. She's in the Lighthouse.
Right.
But they had flyers come home and for seminars for parents, and I know it was discussed in, I'm not sure whether it was classroom or auditorium, but there was discussion on dangers.
The problem with that is it's incomplete data. You know, they're still working on it. And they will be probably for a couple of years.
Yeah, but you've got federal people talking about, you've got state people, the governor just put a ban on things. I mean, this obviously.
Yeah, well, that's because
not
it's a
you know,
clear and
there's not-
present danger, but as far as education is concerned, there are a lot of things that aren't yet known about the risks of vaping. That's one of the reasons why people are not being right out for that.
So, obviously, there has to be some risks associated with a lot of people, let's say, people on medications, things like this, you know.
Oh,
where
yeah.
the-
Yeah, there
you
are
know, where the
risks. It's just that they
consequences of
haven't
other
completed
medications,
the
stuff like that,
database.
yeah.
Yeah, I can reach out to the school nurses and find
I'm
out.
just wondering about that. I mean, we
Yeah.
can talk about it here and something like this, but I wonder if it's
Being
getting into
translated.
the where
I know
biggest
that
need is.
the high school nurse had voiced her concern because health class is only offered once a year to kids now, one semester per school year, which is not great.
No, yeah.
But they did,
Same with gym. Gym, we used to go
Yes,
to gym,
it's,
what, 3 times a week or something now?
right, it's a once a year class, that's only 3 months or something like that. So she said it was hard to get a message across school-wide because not everybody is taking the same health class at once. So I'll find out from her if they've done
Well,
anything else.
Again, maybe can propose maybe some speaker comes in, let's say, once a month or every other month or something like this, so that, you know, it's out there rather than just like, you know, we can talk about it here and we can do this and that, but, you know, we're not really effective in the schools.
Right, and that's the age group we're trying to target. Yeah. In your packet of health director report is the annual beach report that Katie put together. We only had one failure last year, which was fantastic. It was Red River Beach, the west side, and that has a lot of seaweed, unfortunately. Yeah. It doesn't flush as well on that side, so I think just kind of stirs up.
That's funny with all the new culverts they put in.
I know, yeah,
I guess the flow wasn't the way they hoped it would be.
right, right.
But it's sure better than it used to be, I'll tell you that.
And then the swimming pool reports in there too. We had a tough year with pools. Quite a few pools weren't ready for their pre-opening inspections, so I think it's time to do another seminar in the spring because they're just not ready.
You're talking
And
about public, right?
semi-public, the ones at the motels, resorts, condominiums. The bigger resorts obviously do know what they're doing and have a good success rate, but the smaller condominiums, they outsource their pool operator and they're not always up to snuff on what we're expecting. So hopefully next year we'll have a better result. An interesting thing is with the KI pills. So since Pilgrim has officially closed, the Nuclear Regulatory Commission has said there's no need to stockpile KI pills. So we have about 50,000 KI pills in the basement of this building. They expire in July of this year. So
Flush them down.
we can bring them to the transfer station. They're not hazardous. So
But you'd wonder with all that.
I know. How many tablespoons of salt is that? So if you get any phone calls or inquiries about KI and will we be replacing expired pills, the answer is no. the federal government has said that there's no need with the plant being closed.
Yeah, I guess if those casks have a meltdown, the stuff goes down, not up, right?
That's the information we're getting, is that we're only vulnerable to the wind. And with them not being active, it's not a risk. And then lastly is a memo on the budget. So our budget, the Board of Health, Health Department budget for 21, fiscal year 21, starts in July, was level funded from last year. We didn't ask for any increases aside from salary. And those increases are based on union contracts. So I can't level fund those, nor would I want to. But with those increases, our budget goes up by almost 5%. So the selectmen and the budget message this year is to try to keep your increases to 2%. So looking through my budget, trying to remove 3% of it, it meant taking about $7,000. It's not a huge chunk, but it does impact us because our budget is kind of small anyway. So what I did was I went through what we could possibly take out, and what I decided on was to reduce our dues, subscriptions, and travel by $1,000, which is used to go to conferences and to travel for inspections when we don't have a vehicle available, or but mostly we are members of Mass Health Officers Association and National Environmental Health Association. Those things give us discounts on other activities that we need to take in order to keep up with our education. So I took that down. I took our advertising budget down because we haven't really used it as much as we thought we would. And then I did reduce our other purchase services line item. That line item is used right now to spend out for, we outsource our perk test witnessing. Once a week we witness perk tests and do soil tests for septic systems. It ties up an entire day of staff time, so we have been outsourcing that. And we used it to pay for a nutrition wellness program for elementary school kids. So if we have to lose some, we might have to lose it in that line item. So I'll be defending the budget, but I just wanted to keep you all apprised of that. If we need to take some money out, it'll come from those areas. And our part-time year-round salaries, we had some built-in overtime for weekend work from, Cranberry Harvest Festival or things like that we have to do food inspections on, call-outs for emergencies. Those hours were reduced quite a bit as well to get the numbers down. So hopefully it doesn't come to that, but if it does, we'll just be a little shorthanded.
Anything other than from Blue Faucet or Richmere on that old pollution, whatever that was?
I heard that CLF dropped the suit against Wauquasit because they agreed to some concessions. I believe they gave some land to conservation and agreed on some tighter effluent limits on their discharge permit. I don't know what's going on with Witchmere though. Wauquasit is the one that they settled with, but Witchmere, I don't know. It didn't really involve the Board of Health. It was through administration. So Board of Selectmen would have.
So nothing with the Board of Health?
Nothing with the Board of Health, no. No. They are on discharge permits, so they don't have Title V septic systems that are under our jurisdiction. They're over 10,000 gallons a day, which means they are permitted by the state. And those types of systems are monitored monthly for effluent, for nitrogen and coliform and phosphorus, anything else like that. So those are out of our hands and into the state. And then last, we have permits. We have quite a list of permits because it's renewal season. See, we have only one new septic hauler, M.A. Fraser, and they just do porta potties apparently. Stables, we have a new stable on Route 28 at 841 Route 28. It's near the Stone Horse. It's down that end near in South Harwich.
Okay.
It's an existing home, 1.5 acre land. They have an existing barn that wasn't used for horses, but they want to put 2 horses there. That one will pend a inspection by the new animal control officer. And then we have the barn at Derby Lane. Isn't exactly new, it's just a new owner. We also had one application for a licensed utility installer. That's for the sewer lines. CC Construction applied for a licensed utility installer. They provided all the paperwork necessary, references and liability insurance. So I don't have any objections to any of those. But we do need a motion.
Do I hear a motion to pass the permits?
I move.
Second? All in favor? Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Motion to adjourn?
Oh, do I hear a motion to adjourn?
Second.
Okay.
All right, we're out of here. Okay. Thanks, guys.
I think the